People sheltering in a theater in the Ukrainian city of Mariupol have begun to emerge from the building after it was aired, the former head of the Donetsk region says. Hundreds of people were thought to have taken shelter in the theater amid the ongoing Russian siege of Mariupol. Hundreds of thousands of people are trapped in the coastal city, and as many as 2,500 civilians have in Mariupol, Ukrainian officials estimate. Why Russia is struggling against Ukraine. A Ukrainian serviceman guards his position in Mariupol, Ukraine over the weekend. After an awful night of not knowing, we finally have good news from Mariupol on the morning of the 22nd day of the war, the former Donetsk region head Sergei Taruta wrote in a Facebook post Thursday. The shelter of the theater was able to hold. The rubble is beginning to be cleared. People are coming out alive. It was not yet clear whether all those who sheltered in the theater had survived. Ukraine's Minister of Defense, Oleksiy Reznikov, said on Thursday that the Russian who carried out the was a monster, and stressed the presence of children in the building. You've probably already heard that this theater, which was struck by missiles, a theater where 1,200 women and children were hiding, he told the European Parliament via video link. And you can see from the maps, from the drones, that around this theater, big letters of children were written so that the pilot of the plane, which was throwing the S, could see children, and still, in spite of that, this monster has aired the theater. Maxim Kach, a Mariupol city government official, said the building was for civilians, with only women and young children hiding within it, and not military personnel, while an advisor to the government said it was the largest shelter in Mariupol. Hope had earlier emerged on Thursday night, when an official first said some people had managed to survive inside the Mariupol theater. A photo released by Mariupol's city council showed an entire section of the large, three-story theater had collapsed after the strike Wednesday evening. Several hundred people had taken refuge in the building, seeking safety amid Russia's three-week, strangulating siege of the strategic Azov seaport city. New satellite images from Maxar Technologies show that on Monday the word "children" was spelled out in Russian in two areas outside the theater that was aired today. Images released by the Maxar Space Technology company showed that the pavement in front of and behind the once elegant theater had in fact been marked with huge white letters spelling out "children" in Russian, at least as recently as Monday. Rubble had temporarily buried the entrance to the shelter inside the theater, and it was not yet known how many people were or injured, Pavlo Kirilenko, head of the Donetsk Regional Administration, said on Telegram. Russian airstrikes also hit a municipal swimming pool complex in Mariupol where civilians, including women and children, had been sheltering, Mr. Kirilenko said. Now there are pregnant women and women with children under the rubble there, he wrote, though the number of casualties was not immediately known. My heart breaks from what Russia is doing to our people, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said Wednesday night, after the theater strike. Hours earlier, he delivered a speech via video to the US Congress that garnered several ovations, as he called for more help. The Russian Defense Ministry denied the theater or anywhere else in Mariupol on Wednesday. Russia purposefully and cynically destroys drama center in besieged city. On Thursday, Russian artillery destroyed a school and a community center in Marefa, a city near the northeast city of Kharkiv, according to Marefa's mayor Veniamin Sitov. There were no known civilian casualties. The Kharkiv region has seen heavy armament as stalled Russian forces try to advance in the area. 6 nations have called for a UN Security Council meeting on Ukraine on Thursday afternoon, ahead of an expected vote Friday on a Russian resolution demanding protection for Ukrainian civilians in vulnerable situations, yet making no mention of Moscow's responsibility for the war. Russia is committing war crimes and targeting civilians, Britain's UN mission tweeted, announcing the call for the meeting that was joined by the US, France and others. Russia's illegal war on Ukraine is a threat to us all. Russian attacks have battered cities and villages across large parts of Ukraine, including the capital, Kiev, where residents have been huddling in homes and shelters. A theater where hundreds of people had taken shelter in Mariupol was ED. A fire broke out in a Kiev apartment building early Thursday after it was hit by the remnants of a downed Russian rocket, killing one person and injuring at least 3 others, according to emergency services. Firefighters evacuated 30 people from the top floors of the 16-story building and extinguished the blaze within an hour. Russian President Vladimir Putin went on television to Wednesday excoriate Russians who don't back him, even as both sides expressed optimism over efforts to negotiate an end to the fighting. Russians will always be able to distinguish true patriots from scum and traitors, and will simply spit them out like a gnat that accidentally flew into their mouths, he said. I am convinced that such a natural and necessary self-purification of society will only strengthen our country. He said the West is using a fifth column of traitorous Russians to create civil unrest. And there is only one goal. I have already spoken about it, the destruction of Russia, he said. The speech appeared to be a warning that his authoritarian rule, which had already grown tighter since the invasion began on February 24, shutting down Russian news outlets and arresting protesters, could grow even more repressive. In a sign of that, Russian law enforcement announced the first known criminal cases under a new law that allows for 15-year prison terms for posting what is deemed to be false information about the Ukraine war. Among those charged was Veronika Bolotsakovskaya, a Russian-language cookbook author and blogger living abroad. But it also came amid signs that talks were finally making progress. Firefighters extinguished fires in an apartment building hit by shelling in Kiev. Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov said after Tuesday's meeting that a neutral military status for Ukraine was being seriously discussed by the two sides, while Zelensky said Russia's demands for ending the war were becoming more realistic. Wednesday's talks, held by video, appeared to wade more deeply into technicalities. Zelensky advisor Mikhailo Podolyak said Ukraine demanded a ceasefire, the withdrawal of Russian troops and security guarantees for Ukraine from several countries. This is possible only through direct dialogue between Zelensky and Putin, he tweeted. An official in Zelensky's office told the Associated Press that the main subject under discussion was whether Russian troops would remain in separatist regions in eastern Ukraine after the war, and whether borders would be. The official, speaking on condition of anonymity to discuss the sensitive talks, said Ukraine was insisting on the inclusion of one or more Western nuclear powers in the negotiations, and on a legally binding document with security guarantees for Ukraine. In exchange, the official said, Ukraine was ready to discuss a neutral status.